Hi, everybody. This is Melissa, your free range psychic. Today is October 27th. Is that correct? 2024.
It's the 27th. We'll talk about that. Remind me. I'll write it down.
And I have Irish Granny Tarot with me. We're doing a special Halloween and Halloween adjacent video today. So, anybody want to guess who Irish Granny is?
Just look at the address. That's all the hint you need.
May I divulge what everybody's guessed? The Unabomber.
Ted Kaczynski.
Yes.
You know what, Melissa? I'm getting hot.
So yeah. Well, the Unabomber made his appearance, and now
yeah.
And I love Halloween. I'm just going to admit that it's always been my favorite holiday. I love the time of year. I love decorating my house for Halloween. I love preparing the candy that I'm going to give out. And
what do you give out? What kind of candy?
Well, for a long time, I was just giving out organic, gluten-free candy. But then I don't know.
Are you
trying to finish after the pandemic kind of kicked in? I thought, heck, it was one time of year. So this year I got like a bag of this sort of Tootsie Pop type treats, and but I did make sure I got organic fruit roll-ups, and I'm giving out. I got this great deal on Amazon of these fruit gummies. I forget what they're called. They start with an A, Albanese or something, and they're delicious. And I made these little packets in cellophane Halloween wrap, and I make sure that that the candy is peanut free because I was worried about children who might have allergies. But that's what I did. Yeah, I've already
you put a lot of thought into it.
Oh, I do because I don't have any children.
Oh, and okay. So
I put my energies into just doing things for them. And then I bought 2 pumpkins, but I've not carved them yet because I try to wait until near the Halloween so they don't get eaten up by animals. So I'm debating, should I carve it Monday or Tuesday? Like what does the weather look like?
What day is Halloween?
Thursday. So I put them out on Devil's Night, which is October 30th. And then I light them that night, and then I light them on Halloween. I have the skills of a pretty decent 9-year-old who could probably do a better job than me, but that's kind of where I'm at with pumpkin carving. And then it's a ritual for the animals too, because I always do it outside, and then I dump all the innards on my lawn for the animals to eat.
When you say animals, you mean?
I've got all kinds of critters in my backyard, like raccoons and opossums and skunks and squirrels and the birds, crows and blue jays. Everything's out there.
I have this vision of a row,
like Disney.
We have raccoons, of a row of raccoons checking their calendar. Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah.
I see it now.
My animals live, they're not mine, but the critters in my yard live pretty peacefully. I live really near woods. There are deer also. So yeah, it's really nice. I love being surrounded by trees. I am in the city of trees, and I love living with nature. So I don't live in the middle of a forest, but it feels like it sometimes. So that's what I do. What do you do on Halloween?
Well, we live in a semi-rural area, so it's a small town with residential area. We live in a residential area that's been here since the beginning of the town, and probably the 1880s maybe. And we live in a very old house. It's about 110 years old, maybe a little older than that. But most of the houses around were built at different times, so it doesn't look like a development. There's no uniformity, which makes it really interesting. When we moved in here 40 years ago, We were the young family with little kids, and there were a lot of elderly people. They've all died. Now we're the elderly people. However, years ago, like maybe the 1930s and 40s, this particular neighborhood was called Pill Hill. All the doctors lived on this particular neighborhood. So there's nothing fancy in this town whatsoever. But if you were going to pick a neighborhood that had more old established houses here and there, this would be the neighborhood. Ours is not. Ours was, it's a box. But because it has that reputation, it's interesting how that lasts. It's no longer true at all. However, it persists. And every Halloween for literally decades, we have had van loads of kids brought to our neighborhood from all over town. We've spent hundreds of dollars on candy. We've had hundreds and hundreds of trick-or-treaters. And my husband loves it. He had to stop doing it when COVID hit. And so now we just put caution crime scene tape around the fence, and we don't even turn our lights on because we can't afford it anymore. We literally go through hundreds of dollars worth of candy. So, it has changed. When my kids were little, we were all into it. We had haunted houses here at the house. We did, we're into it. I made beautiful costumes for my children, but this is the most I can go. I've lost interest. I lost interest the year I quit eating sugar. And I was telling you earlier, the first Halloween that I quit eating sugar, I turned on the television and there was a commercial for pumpkin-shaped Reese's peanut butter candy, and I started to cry. I can't even cope. I'm in severe denial. And I just don't want to hear about people getting candy handed to them in buckets. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Well, I wish there were more kids in my neighborhood. There's not all that many, but there are. It varies from year to year, and there are more and more families moving into this neighborhood. But I love it. I love it when I get a lot of kids. But I don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on candy.
It's ridiculous. In fact, I was talking to a neighbor yesterday, and the subject came up. I said, "Are you doing Halloween?" And she said, "Oh yeah, she just moved into the neighborhood a year ago, and she was really excited, but she's been warned." And I said, "Yeah, well, believe it." It's bad.
Oh, so everybody celebrates Halloween in different ways. So today, we're going to cover, I think, a variety of things. You want to talk about some personal ghost stories, if you still want to do that, and
Sure.
Or how I thought we were talking in the pre-show about how spirit manifests even when we're not aware of it, how the other world, how the supernatural can be in our mundane everyday world, and we, unless you're seeing the signs, unless you have that spidey sense, we don't always pick it up. So you were talking about how you were seeing it in various interesting ways. So we talked about that, Helen. And I found this book on Halloween. I was looking at books that told the history of Halloween because I'm very interested in the where Halloween came from and how it manifests now. And I found this book called the Book of Halloween. It's Ruth Edna Kelly, and it was written in 1919. It's a great book.
Think about what was happening then.
Oh yeah, well, was it World War I?
Mm-hmm. It was just at the end of World War I. It was the start of the Roaring '20s. It was the height of the Spanish flu. It was
interesting. Like what a
prohibition, suffragettes, a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm going to read some out of this book, just give us a sense of what it is, because it's a very important holiday just historically, and it's a natural holiday, meaning it came from a time where seasonal changes occur, and they're very dramatic, just like the winter solstice, which is we have Christmas and different holidays around that, but really that particular time, solstice time, is a similarly a time of big change in our seasons, and there are always holidays around those times of year, and it dates back hundreds of thousands of years.
Thousands, yeah.
So also I want to recognize that also what Noche de Muerto, Day of the Dead, is November 1st, November 2nd, and is very much coinciding with this time of year, because Halloween is All Hallows Eve, which what having a Catholic background, is it All Souls?
All Hallows is All Souls, and then the next is All Saints Day, and it's about honoring the people who have died and gone before us, and
exactly like the night of, like the Day of the Dead.
Yeah, because the Spanish brought Catholicism, and they merged it. Of course, they merged it with indigenous rituals and rites, and you can see that. And then it's also merged with other cultures that are in Mexico and Latin America. Island cultures, and it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we traverse, especially on the side of the hemisphere, into the darker days, let's acknowledge, because it's a very spiritual time, as well as physical, emotional, and mental. This is a huge time of from being outwards to going inwards, for the days to get so much shorter, and for this dark, very introspective time of year that is upon us. As here where I am, the leaves are falling from the trees, and it's getting cold, and the flowers are dying, and so it's a time of transition. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, and there's some beautiful poems in this book that I want to read that just amazing. So I thought we would start off maybe with some ghost stories.
Okay.
Do you want to tell us a ghost story?
Yeah. I have a couple of standards, and these are like real, that really happened. They're not made up. But we were talking earlier, and I was telling you that I'm always kind of envious of all of the people that I know who are much more in touch with, the spirit world, people who are mediums, people who channel, people who really have kind of a personal relationship. And I envy that. I think that's a very cool talent to have. But I've discovered over the past few years that I'm actually more like that than I thought I was. Not a ton, I'm not a medium. I don't see dead people much. But my whole entire life has been lived kind of communicating in my head, with the spirit world, and not realizing that that's possibly unusual, not common. I just thought that was normal. When you're raised in a traditionally religious family and a culture like the Irish culture, that's not such a huge departure to think about. You pray, you're speaking to God and the angels. Angels are real. Saints are real people, and, they're interested in us and interact with us. This is how I was raised. And, for example, my grandfather and I were very close. And when he died, I was 3. And I remember him like it was yesterday. And I had a difficult childhood, and I had an ongoing dialogue with my grandfather in my head as a child. When things were difficult, I would have this ongoing dialogue. And I used to assume this was just me, and now I'm realizing, wait a minute, what's the matter with me that I did not make the connection that his spirit has hovered, and been there as a resource for me, and finally acknowledging that. I lived in a house. Well, before that, when I was really young, I was always very afraid of the dark. I mean, really afraid of the dark with no good reason. And I realize now, remembering that feeling that I had as a child, it was about energy. It was about connecting with energy. Not that necessarily there was anything evil or bad, but it's just you connect with energy and you really don't know what that is. You're sensing something you're not familiar with. Nobody's going to explain it to you. Nobody else seems to actually feel it. And therefore it's written off as childhood paranoia. I no longer believe that. I think some children are sensitive to the spirits amongst us, and it's dismissed and belittled, and I think that's a mistake. I think it should be acknowledged and then they should be reassured, but that's just another little ghost thing. I lived in a house that really creeped me out. Didn't creep anybody else out. It creeped me out. I didn't like to be alone in certain rooms. I didn't like nighttime in the dark. I always had this ominous sense of weirdness, you know. Well, our family kind of fell apart living in that house and moved on. My best friend had lived up the street, and her mother told me after the fact, there's something wrong with that house. The people who lived there before you ended up getting divorced, splitting up, and it was really ugly. And then you guys had what happened to you guys happen to you. And the people that lived after you, they had two children, like a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. And one day they got in the car to go someplace on the freeway and they were hit from behind and the children were killed and they had to leave the house. Everybody who lived in that house had tragedy or difficulty. And I think there was bad energy in the house. Now that I think about it, I think, oh, of course, I used to smell something in that house and it wasn't dirty and there was nothing weird under the floorboards or anything, but I think it was a presence. I really do. And I would ask other people, do you smell that? What is that? And they'd look at me like I was crazy. I now realize there was some weird energy about that house. So, you want me to continue with ghost experiences?
If you want to, sure.
Sure. Well, I've talked about this before, but it's such an interesting story. My mother was pretty psychic when she came to visit. And we had a little, a beautiful old house, kind of a 2-story sort of pseudo-Victorian. It was old enough, maybe almost, it had a little bit of character, and they turned it into a gift shop. So we went one day to this gift shop, and the minute we went in, I said, listen, I've heard there's ghosts in here. Let's go check it out. And we're wandering around in this place, and she said, yeah, there is a really odd, uncomfortable feeling. So we walked up the stairs inside the house, and at the landing at the top of the stairs, they had this beautiful old cabinet full of Christmas ornaments for sale. But if you were going to look at them, you had your back to the stairs. So when we came in, it was just opening, and it was like a Monday morning. There was nobody in there but the owner. And talked to her for a second and went up the stairs, looked at the Christmas ornaments, and we heard footsteps. Definitely footsteps coming up the stairs. And I thought, oh, the owner is, keeping an eye on us, that we're not pocketing things, And I turned around to make a joke. I actually had my hands ready to pull out my jeans pockets, go, oh, nothing in my pocket, just as a joke, right? There was nobody there. But the footsteps kept coming. Walk, 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 walk. They walked past us and down the hallway. And we went, oh, let's go home. So we went downstairs and we made a last little detour into this big parlor, big living room area. And I was looking in the bay window at Crystal, and my mother was over by the fireplace looking at China. And she said, Helen, come here. This is so weird. Come here a second. I want you to feel something. She reached out and grabbed my arm, when I got close enough. And when her hand touched my arm, the whole area filled up with the smell of lilies.
Wow.
Ice cold. And we both went, ah, and left. So that, the
That's
kind
a good
of thing,
story. That's a good
isn't it?
spooky
Isn't that a
story.
good story?
I believe energies, people leave behind energies in houses for sure. And I definitely believe in ghosts, obviously, and haunting. And I was telling Helen that I transition a lot of lost spirits to the other side. And I feel obligated. So it'd be kind of, for me to go to like a haunted castle or something, I'd be pretty busy just asking my guides, can this, like the lady in white, can we transition her now?
So you actually physically with your eyeballs see something?
I can't, I see it through my third eye. So I see visions. I don't see it as a person standing next to me physically, but it's hard to explain, but it's a vision.
An
So
image, right.
Image. I do see, I do hear, I do smell. My guides will sometimes even put things in my mouth, to give me an idea of a time or something, a place.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So it's that kind of seeing. Some people I know do. I think it would freak me out. I don't know if I'd want to do that, to actually physically, as if it was a person right there. I don't know if that would be comfortable for me. But I do see and hear things. It's just it's psychically, and in that dimension. Which I wanted to mention this also. About that. Why do some people think it's easier to intermingle with the dead? It's because people think it's the veils are thin spiritually.
Yeah,
like the barriers that separate us, or the illusionary barriers that separate us from the living and the dead, become very thin, and so spirits can walk in and out a lot more easily than at other times.
Well, if you think about it as energy, which it is.
It is energy.
No, they're really coming to the understanding that physics and metaphysics are actually the same thing. And if you think of it in those terms, and then think about the astrology of it, we're moving in the same cycle, and we're in the same basic astrological planetary place at this time of year. There's got to be something about the energy of that actual location or interrelationship. I don't find that mysterious at all.
Yes, it is. I believe that's true, and that's why I love this time of year so much, because the veils are so thin, and you can feel spirit around you more intensely than at other times, or at least acknowledge it. I mean, maybe we on some level we feel that all the time, but this is the time where it becomes more intense, and it's important to acknowledge spirit. That the celebrations all over the world for the dead are very meaningful, whether they're in this country, Japan, India, wherever, everywhere in the world, people have something like a Halloween or Day of the Dead or
harvest or
whatever that is. It's to acknowledge a Native American spirits or spiritual beliefs. It's important to not just be living constantly in a mundane perception where we're disconnected from that, because it is part of our world. The dead are amongst us, and then we're amongst them in our own way. So I wanted to read a poem from this book that I held up, the Book of Halloween. And this book talks about how the celebration of Samhain started in Europe, but really Ireland. And she looks at the writings of the Romans regarding these druidic type of beliefs and ceremonies, and it's very interesting. But I really think that people who are interested in this kind of stuff order it. It's a fantastic book to have. Interspersed amongst her descriptions, her histories, are these wonderful poems from the people of the time that she was alive, and they're very evocative. This is chapter 3 I'm reading from Samhain. On November 1st was Samhain, which means summer's end. Take my tidings, stags contend, snows descend, summer's end. A chill wind raging, the sun low keeping, swift to set, o'er seas high sweeping. Dull red the fern shapes our shadows. Wild geese mourn o'er misty meadows. Keen cold times, each weaker wings, icy times, such I sing. Take my tidings. So this poem was First Winter Song by Robert Graves.
Oh.
And she goes into writing about how flocks were driven in at this time. Men were first in leisure, and men first had leisure after harvest toil. So this is the time that they could relax after a busy harvest. Fires were built as Thanksgiving for Baal, or Thanksgiving to Baal for the harvest. So Baal was the god they believed in, Baal. They believed also in a goddess, but I can't recall her name. The old fire, maybe Brigitte. The old fire on the altar was quenched before the night of October 31st, and the new one was made, as well as all sacred fires, by friction. So the sparks were caught, blazed upon the altar, and were passed on to light the hilltop fires. The new fire was given next morning, New Year's Day, by the priests to the people to light their hearths, where all fires had been extinguished. The blessed fire was thought to protect the year through the home it warmed. In Ireland, the altar was Glactga. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. On the hill, it's a Tlactga. On the hill of Ward in Meath, where sacrifices were made, especially of black sheep. The year was over, and the sun's life of a year was done. The Celts thought that this was the time the sun fell a victim for 6 months to the powers of winter darkness. From this idea that the sun suffered enemies, on this day grew the association of Samhain with death. So it's literally the death of the sun.
Oh, yeah. It's an existential dread that primitive people had, that the sun would not return.
Yes. So here's another poem. I love this poem. The melancholy days are come, the saddest of the year, of wailing winds and naked woods, and meadows brown and sere. Heaped in the hollows of the grove, the withered leaves lie dead. They rustle to the eddying gust and to the rabbit's tread. The robin and the wren are flown, and from the shrub the jay, and from the woodtop calls the crow through all the gloomy day. The windflower and the violet, they perished long ago, and the wild rose and the orchids died amidst the summer glow. But on the hill, the goldenrod, and the aster in the wood, and the yellow sunflower by the brook in autumn's beauty stood, till fell the frost from the cold clear heaven, as falls the plague on men, and the brightness of their smile was gone from upland, glade, and glen. And that's William Bryant from a poem called Death of the Flowers.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
I'll finish this chapter, which is really short because there's a few more poems here. In the same state as those who are dead are those who never lived, dwelling right in the world, but invisible as most mortals at most times, or invisible to most mortals at most times. Seers could see them anytime, and it was very many were abroad at once. Others might get a chance to watch them too. They're in a world in which we dwell, and yet a world invisible. And do not think that naught can be, save only what the eye ye see. I tell you that this very hour, had but your sight a spirit's power, you would be looking eye to eye at a terrific company. And that is by Cox. I did research his first name. These poets, some of them, I think, are no longer
well known
about. But let me get his name. So this is talking about the fairy world, and very much in Ireland. still to this day, like in Iceland, the fairy world is recognized and honored. It's sacred. I've heard that, and this may be urban legend, that they will actually re-navigate a freeway or a major road if there's a fairy glen in the way. They're not going to build through that fairy glen.
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yes. And here's the name, Arthur Coxe, Coxe. What a beautiful poem that is.
Yeah.
So I'll just go on and finish because it's only one more page. These supernatural spirits ruled the dead. There were two classes, the Duatha De Danann.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people of the goddess. Mm-hmm. And the goddess' name was Danu. Gods of light and life, and spirits of darkness and evil. The Tuatha had their chief seat on the Isle of Man in the middle of the Irish Sea and brought those under power from the islands around them. On Midsummer's Day, they vanquished the Firblogs, Fir and then Bolgs, and gained most of Ireland by the Battle of Moytura. And a long time afterwards, perhaps 1000 BC, the former sea demons, after destroying nearly all of their enemies by plagues, exacted from those remaining a tribute, a third part of their corn, a third part of their milk, and a third part of their children. This tax was paid on Samhain.
That'd be an interesting decision.
I know. Oh my goodness. This tax was paid in Samhain. It was on the week before Samhain that the former landed upon Ireland. This is a myth, by the way. On the Eye of Samhain, the gods met them in the second battle of Moytura, and they were driven back into the ocean. As Tigremas, a mythical king of Ireland, was sacrificing the firstlings of every issue and the scions of every clan to Crom Cruach, I'm slaughtering this language, the king idol, and lay prostrate before the image, he and 3/4 of his men mysteriously disappeared. Then came Tigremas, the prince of Tarn yonder, on Halloween with many hosts. A cause of grief to them were the dead were the men of Bomba's host without happy strength around Tigremas, this destructive man of the north. From the worship of Crom Cruach, 'twas no luck for them. For I have learnt, except 1/4 of the keen Gals, not a man alive lasting the sneer escaped without death in his mouth. So this is Taina Senkus of Meg's Life. I wish somebody here spoke Gaelic. This was direct invocation, but the fire rites, which were continued so long after, were really only worshipping the sun by proxy in his nearest likeness, fire. Samhain was then a day sacred to the death of the sun, on which had been paid a sacrifice of death to evil powers. Though overcome at Moytura, evil was ascendant at Samhain. Methods of finding out the will of spirits in future naturally worked better than charms, and invocations had more power, for the spirits were near to help if care was taken not to anger them, and due honors paid.
I think it would be difficult to live in an environment where you were constantly treading carefully to not anger the spirits and the fairies and the elves and I think that would be very difficult. I would prefer to have a more amicable relationship.
Well, that was then, BC time. But Ireland is such a mystical environment. The ocean and the beautiful verdant countryside, and the veils are thin in Ireland anyway, I think, because I've been there. Have you been there? You've been there.
Yeah. I was born there, and I've been back. Yeah.
I mean, think about these are similar to the the Odyssey and Tales of Ulysses.
Yeah, that's
Romans.
true.
People, there was a lot of projection and
I had
anthropomorphizing.
I had a very weird moment. I don't really know adequately the words to describe it. My cousin's wife and my husband and I went to oh my god, my mind just went. Newgrange. Newgrange is this ancient place that they discovered. They used to think it was just pasture land with rolling hills. And lo and behold, the hills were actually the tops of underground circular constructions from ancient times that were kind of, I don't know, like primitive telescopes or something. The way that they were constructed in relationship to the sun and the stars, they would have beams of light that would shine through the opening down the passage against the back wall, only on the winter solstice or only on the summer solstice. I forget which one. But there were rituals that were performed there. It was part of religion, part of the belief system that we now call, mythology. And we went to visit it. It was really interesting. First of all, it was beautiful, just beautiful. You're standing in this field that has these mounds, gigantic roofed mounds that just look like small hills, and they've made them paths, it's all very groomed at this point, but all around you are fields and farms and sheep, and it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of very beautiful. And they do a tour like thing, and we went into this underground circular construction, and the guy was really interesting. He was some sort of archaeologist guy, and he gave a whole presentation about it. And they had it, of course, prepared for tourists. They turn off all the lights, and I have never experienced in my life a more profound darkness. It was beyond the fact that you were somewhere underground without lights. This darkness had a weight to it and an energy to it. And I had this sort of weird mystical experience that there are no words. I can't describe it. Nothing significant that I could describe. It was all about the feeling of it. When we went out, I said to my husband, "Did you feel that?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I thought, okay, it was really remarkable. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't creeped out. I didn't have anticipatory ideas of what it was going to be like. What they do is they replicate the moment when the sunlight comes down. They have a light set up, and they let you see what that was like for the early people. But there's an energy there, absolutely undeniable. I wonder about locations, why they're chosen. Are they chosen in relationship to the ley lines on the earth? Because, this guy's an archaeologist. He's not about mystical stuff. He's talking
they
about...
absolutely are always on ley lines. All those places.
Yeah, that's what I was
the ley line
thinking.
maps, yeah, always.
There's weird energy going on here that goes beyond simple explanation. It was really interesting. So, do you know the poem, The Raven?
Oh, yeah, of course, quote The Raven.
Yeah,
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, because the raven is a really important animal in Irish mythology. It's the animal familiar. It's also, animal familiars do become the god or goddess at times. I wouldn't say possessed, but representative of, companion of, messenger of, and sometimes the iteration of the god or goddess. And the Morrigan is a female goddess in Ireland that the raven is very significant. Well, the other day I was just thinking about Halloween, and I was thinking about my childhood, what was scary. And I got to thinking about this because of politics. And I thought, this is such a particularly scary time. What was I scared of?
Yeah, because Trump looks like a really badly carved pumpkin.
No, I think he looks like the Golem, but that's a whole other thing. So,
but on Halloween, the orange, big bloated face. And
I've seen pumpkins carved to look like him. It's epic. So I was thinking about Vincent Price. Do you remember Vincent?
Yeah,
Price?
Of course. Yeah,
and his movies. And so I got to start thinking. I have a Substack, and I write stuff on my Substack, and I ended up writing a thing, and I enjoy, this is probably terrible, it really is doggerel, but I like to do takeoffs on famous poems. So I made a poem about our political situation and Halloween, kind of put them together, called The Craven.
Oh, can you recite that?
I don't know if I can get it. It's just right over there. Yeah, hang on. Let me get
keep us entertained.
Yeah, you can talk.
She won't be but a minute. So I was thinking as she was talking about the whole world of fairies and sprites and elves and all the other dimensional spirits that are acknowledged on Halloween, and how that has been uh, something that has continued on from the thousands of years, and the acknowledgement of the spirit world that just doesn't include human spirits, but other spirits too. Okay, I love poetry.
Well, it's going to take me a second. I have to get into the site, and I am computer challenged. Hang on,
That's okay.
I kind of have a.
No worries. I shouldn't have put you on the spot, Helen. I'm sorry.
No, it's fun. I had a really good time writing this. This is terribly self-indulgent. I just really like entertaining myself with writing. And where did that go, for heaven's sake? See, this is where I start losing my stuff. Here we go. Okay. So I have this Substack called Ask Your Irish Granny. And the whole point of it was I've been urged by a lot of people over the years, you need to write. And I just don't have a voice. I couldn't think of a voice. You know how, okay. So it came to me, wouldn't it be funny to do an advice column like Ann Landers? But I called it Ask Your Irish Granny. And I got people to write in questions and I gave them advice, but more than just common sense, have a little metaphysical tinge to it. And I exhausted everybody's problems. Apparently everyone's lives are going really, really well because I exhausted their problems. And I started having to manufacture problems and disguise them as real issues. And then one day I was just irritated about something and just decided, okay, I'll write a letter to anyone who wants to read it. And I'll vent my spleen. And occasionally now I do that. And so I did a thing recently called What is Scarier Than Halloween? So can I read it to you?
Oh, please do.
And I don't know how entertaining this will be, but I'm always amused. So, dear readers, Halloween descends apace, yet nothing feels as menacing as the approach of Election Day. Given the time of year, I got to thinking about the things that frightened me as a child. I was particularly fond of Vincent Price and his oeuvre, especially the iconic 1953 House of Wax, in which the demented Price attempts to turn the future Morticia Addams, Caroline Jones, into a wax effigy of Joan of Arc. It terrified me at 9. Now at 70, my boogeyman is far less nuanced, well-spoken, or suave. To the contrary, I would more accurately compare him to the Golem. I'm referring, of course, to Donald Trump. Professor Jared, Price's character in the movie, and Trump are both, allegedly, psychopaths, each acting out his own delusional horror narrative. The menace of Vincent Price was easily dismissed with the turn of the on-off switch. Is anyone else alive who still remembers a time before remotes? It's proving more challenging to get rid of Trump, and I'm wondering if he's wandered into the wrong scary movie and will require a stake strategically placed. And then in parentheses, I wrote, this is meant to be artistic license and not to be taken seriously. And I cannot believe we have so lost our sense of irony that I even have to say that. But for those with absolutely no sense of humor or frame of reference to the classic horror genre, I do not advocate violence. Sigh. The day in which the veil between life and death is thinnest is upon us. The day in which our grasp on democracy feels most tenuous follows close on its heels. Equating the two feels inevitable, and the association between tales of horror, Vincent Price, and Edgar Allan Poe is manifest. Price starred in at least 7 screen treatments of Poe's works. And so in the spirit of the season, for your entertainment, I offer a humble variation on the ominous, foreboding Halloween favorite, The Raven, by that master of all things creepy and likely to wake you up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, the illustrious Edgar Allan Poe. Imagine it narrated in the distinctive and utterly chilling voice of the great Vincent Price. Because he does the Raven in one of his things, and it's just, he's fabulous. So this is The Craven. Campaign year, full dark and dreary, caused us migraines, made us teary, contemplating fast and furious terror of one Trump term more. While Dems ranting, MAGA chanting, warned of roundups, unrest, war. 'Tis just bluster, fascists stuttered, not real plans for civil war, empty words and nothing more. As democracy's defenders braced for what would come November, while each right-wing Congress member tossed out votes upon the floor, nervously we checked the lying, plainly called out cheating, spying, hoped by falsehood amplifying, the influence of Russia tying to the con man's influence buying, might prevent that one term more. Soon would come the day of reckoning, authoritarian rule a threatening, as so many foolish people threw their freedoms out the door. Blindly they embraced the liar, set democracy afire, while a daddy figure seeking, dictatorial rule embracing, false security replacing any hope of voice or choosing future leaders anymore. They would rather have the craven sacrifice this long-time haven, refuge of the world's most desperate, seeking new life on this shore. Lock the borders, jail the stranger, make gender, race, and love a danger to all but hoarders of resources. Lose his paramilitary forces on those who dare defend their rights, who speak, protest, put up a fight, resistors of the dictator. Now comes the time. This is the hour. Unite, one voice, the people's power. Renounce the craven, vote for justice, defy their efforts, do not cower. Rule of law, avert the crisis, free us of this heartless menace. Send the psychopaths a-packing, exile all who show they're lacking empathy and don't elect them. Let the world know we reject them. Tell the craven, nevermore. Clearly that and nothing more. With apologies to Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, that was excellent. Excellent.
Fun. It was really fun.
Fitting. I'm so glad you found that and read it.
I actually had forgotten about it.
So good.
Oh, thanks.
A good segue from that is what we were talking about before. You were mentioning how spirits spiritual presence is around mundane event, and you were talking about Donald Trump and McDonald's.
Oh my God, wasn't that just the most astounding thing? Now here's an example of us being slapped in the face by the sense of humor and irony of the universe, and a lot of us don't even recognize it. Let me take off my headphones. So everybody saw Donald Trump, McDonald's, doing the first job he'd ever done for a living, and not really doing anything at all, mocking working people, mocking. He was asked when he left, are you going to raise the minimum wage? And he said, no. Just, So he infected McDonald's, because immediately after he did that little stunt, there was an outbreak of bacterial food poisoning in a bunch of McDonald's across a number of states. And I thought, of course there was. This is the universe.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ill wishing towards that man, because everywhere he goes, in huge groups of people that he attacks have to be ill wishing him. He doesn't understand. Don't provoke ill wishing. And
I don't advocate that. This is what I advocate. I don't
advocate that at all. I'm just saying.
No, I know you don't. No, not you, but other people, right? I've heard a lot of
communities.
Yeah. I advocate visualizing him surrounded by an impermeable barrier that he can't get out and hurt anybody.
That sounds like a good visualization. No, yeah. we were just joking earlier about how the Trump doesn't, or maybe he does, maybe he thrives off it. But when you evoke that kind of hostility from people who may have just kind of ignored you, groups of people, including, no, well, probably everybody. There's just this very small piece of the pie of demographics that he has not offended terribly. I don't know what is wrong with that man. It must be when narcissism goes off the rails, then you just make enemies of everybody because we were you and me were talking about how that can manifest in weird mishaps around him, like his mic going off, or God knows, he's probably experiencing a lot of like little mini spiritual explosions of toxic energy, I should say.
Well, it's interesting. Rick Wilson, who was a big Republican campaign guy, he was one of the ones who would tell them how to do the campaign for years and years and years, decades. I first heard of him when he was being interviewed in 2015, I think, 2016, about his new book at the time, Everything Trump Touches Dies. That's the name of the book.
Which was prophetic and very true.
Yeah, and he was instrumental, one of the founders of the Lincoln Project, and he makes a lot of their commercials. So that's who he is. And he has a very valid point. You put out all that kind of negative energy, it's just going to come back to you. But you said something about him being a narcissist, and it's absolutely true. But just in case anybody's interested, I'm not shamelessly advertising my channel, but I think this
information... You have every right to do that on my show.
Well, I don't have the book within arm's reach, but
no problem with that.
I'm in the process of fourth and final video.
Helen, you froze just for a sec. You froze just for a sec.
I'm in the process. You froze, and I was listening to myself. It's funny, right? I'm in the process of uploading a synopsis of a book, and I'm halfway through. I'm uploading video number 3 today, and number 4 probably tomorrow. I don't want to overwhelm people, but this is like extra credit. This is not our usual Saturday book. This is a synopsis of the book, The More Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, by 40 plus psychiatrists and psychologists and behavioral experts and people involved in nuclear security and people from the Pentagon. They had a conference in DC at the end of September, and this is the culmination of their work and the culmination of their 3 other books that they've written about him. And what I learned from reading this book, because I'm really into psychopathology, what I learned was it's not his malignant narcissism necessarily per se that we need to worry about the most. It's his paranoia. And they give a very persuasive argument for why that's true, how we can see it, how it manifests today, what they predicted about it in 2016 that 100% came true, and what they're predicting moving forward should he get power again. And it is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yes, so everybody's sufficiently spooked and scared right now, because it is the reality of it. And it's very supernatural. I mean, I believe that Trump lives in a supernatural world. I think narcissists tend to live in a supernatural, like, dark world, where they have a lot of spiritual power, but it's dark power. And he seems to be able to mesmerize people, to speak to some very primitive and dark place of humanity, and bind them to him. It's not unusual in terms of the kind of fascistic dictator type strong man. I say strong man that Trump likes to project. You look at Hitler, you look at Stalin, and Kim Jong Il, all these people, they have the same this magnetism and we look at him, for the most part, just the majority of people looking at him and going, God, he's so ugly, he's so disgusting, he's so racist, misogynistic, he's a baby. I'm sure they're still floating remember the big
Balloon.
balloons with Trump in a diaper, which turned out to be true.
Yeah.
I thought at first when this went up, oh yeah, because he's a baby, but he actually, wears a diaper, right? Allegedly.
Art imitates life, right?
Art imitates, yeah. Or the person designing that balloon knew that he did, because it's been well known, according to Noel Castler, who used to work on The Apprentice, that everybody knew that he
Yeah.
wore a diaper. But it is like the Sauron of our time, or the every time period has this boogeyman or this devil. And while Putin, I believe Putin is the devil and Trump is just like like a minion of his, but Trump on his own is just as scary, because he to get to power, to win this, which I don't believe he will, but to win the next presidency, he will sacrifice the world. And if you think that the Hamas attack on that music festival in Israel, and Netanyahu's involvement, and Putin's involvement, and all of that stuff, that timing, they timed that out. That was the early October surprise, a year in advance, to bring Trump into the presidency of the United States.
Yeah, to put Biden on the spot.
Because it brought, let me finish this, sure, that it brought about this conflict in the Middle East, that at any given time you can light the fire, and boom, it explodes, and ginning up then the polarity between those who supported it got convoluted, and I do believe that's because of Russian disinformation, that it became, Gaza against Israel, when really it was Hamas and Hezbollah in Gaza. And then Netanyahu also, who aligns himself with Trump and Putin, to use that as this huge dividing force, so that this war could manifest. But this is all very cunningly thought out, and then North Korea getting involved. But if you think that Trump wouldn't destroy the world to get the presidency, it's not just about us. It's just and it's not just about American politics. It's about using these catastrophic, divisive techniques and tactics that put everybody at risk, and have killed hundreds of thousands of people. And then you look at also, Trump doing the same thing with COVID. So it's, what kind of person would be so maniacal that he puts the whole world around the world powers at risk? Yeah, and that is Trump.
Psychopath. Yeah, the book I was telling you about, they illuminate, what's the word I want? They list all of his behaviors, all of the things he said, the characteristics of a psychopath, connections to previous dictators, and they really make a persuasive argument. They also predict what he'll do should he get back into power. This, it's going to be ugly. I've been listening to a book I read a long time.
It's not going to be ugly. It could be ugly, because I don't believe it's not going to happen.
No, I'm saying yes. Yeah. I'm listening to this book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, because, I read it years ago, and I've always felt that he is manifesting whatever happened in Germany in the 30s. But you hear a lot of people in the media saying, there's too much connection being made between Trump and Hitler. I've never believed that. I believe there's too little. So I started to listen to this book so that I could get other things done. It's 58 hours of audiobook.
Oh my God.
I'm 82% of the way through.
58 hours.
And it's horrifyingly similar. I cannot tell you how many times I put it on pause and told my husband, listen to this. And the parallels are absolutely uncanny. It's terrifying. But I had I don't know, I guess I'll call it an inspiration, for lack of a better term. couple of weeks ago out of the blue, and I really don't have much, I have zero background, like factual historical knowledge about this, but I thought, oh, I bet I know what's going on. So I told a number of people, I read cards on it, I wanted proof, and I just said, this is allegedly, this is just a thought that occurred to me. And a couple of days later, I picked up the paper, and so this is my thought. I thought, there's this weird circular connection. Netanyahu was a family friend of Jared Kushner's family. He went to college in the United States. They got to know each other. They call him Uncle Bibi. The kids in Kushner's family call him Uncle Bibi. Very, very close relationship. And Jared Kushner's family is just a bunch of con men. It allegedly is. They're horrible people. So recently, Jared Kushner was overheard looking at the devastation at Gaza and saying, great beachfront property soon, right? And I started thinking about it, and I thought, okay, we've got this weird conflation of connections. We've got Netanyahu, Kushner, Trump. We'll make them synonymous. We've got Kushner, Saudi Arabia. We've got Netanyahu and his animosity extended from him to Hezbollah, Hamas, and we have Iran involved with them, and we have Putin involved.
Except let me caveat here. He actually he really wasn't anti-Hamas for a long time.
Well, I'm talking about the conflict that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's just that he allowed Hamas to end up in the position they ended up in, so that they could do what they did. That's on
right, but there's a connection here that I want to make.
Carry on. Sorry about that.
No. So I'm thinking, isn't it weird? And I just have this funny feeling that money is behind much of this. Power is behind. It goes without saying. Saudi Arabia is more involved than we realize, allegedly.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Trump and Kushner are
Putin. Don't leave out Putin.
No, I'm not. I'm not done. Yeah. Okay. So Trump and Kushner, Saudi Arabia, there's that connection. There's Trump and Kushner, Netanyahu, there's that connection. Just keep it's a web, right? So I think, this is my thought that I had, my inspiration. I think Netanyahu is intentionally goading Iran to retaliate, because his goal is to have an excuse to get really ugly more than ever. And Saudi Arabia is pushing him. Trump is pushing him. His own ego, because he's a psychopath, is pushing him. And the goal here is it's a scorched earth with Gaza to allow Saudi Arabia to step in, to let Trump and Kushner step in. Who knows what Netanyahu's problem is, but who's behind all of this is Putin in the background. And so I have this thought, and I think this is crazy. I've watched too many soap operas when I was a child. I'm losing my mind. And I
actually did a reading on it, and that all came out in it. It was
wait here, because there's one more little piece of the story.
No, I mean, you're not crazy. I mean, maybe you're crazy too, but
I found out
my cards. So,
and it's horrifying to have this sort of gut instinctual feeling be verified. It's horrifying. So I pick up the paper a couple of days later, and this big article. There's a guy of all places, and I think this was a little message to me, Galway in Ireland. I love Galway. I have family in Galway. I love Galway. So here's this guy in Galway working for a nonprofit. He used to work for the UN, and he's an expert. And he said, people don't seem to understand that Saudi Arabia is connected to this, Trump and Kushner connected to it. And the goal here is to get Israel to goad Iran into retaliation. So, and here's something I didn't think of, they want to extend the conflict. They want to bring in the allies of Israel. They want to make Biden look bad. They want to include a broader number of countries. And what is not being spoken about nearly enough, America is involved with people, not just here's a little money, go buy a bomb, with people. And the United Kingdom has people there too. It has expanded and expanded. So I'll just leave you with that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think it's unfolding. I think it's very good observations, but I see it, but that's why, and we're gonna finish soon. Just heads up.
You're kidding.
I think we've been going on for over an hour. Do you think?
No.
Maybe not. I've lost track, but I think we have. Yeah. If not, it's near an hour. But that's why this election, it's all coming down to this timing, and why so much they've been trying to do to make Biden look bad, now whatever, they blame everything on Kamala Harris, but this is why they did it. It was psyops to influence the election.
Yeah.
And everything that they've done is turning on this election.
Yeah.
They threw all their eggs in one basket, however. And
they really want him to win.
Yes, but he's not going to win. And let me finish.
Oh no, I'm biting my nail.
No, I thought you were breathing into kind of counter. So maybe no. Believe whatever. We'll find out for sure. I could be wrong. Whatever, but I don't see him winning. I see him losing terribly, actually. And any chance he had of winning, he's blowing. And I think the most obvious reason is money. He does not have money, whereas the Harris campaign, I've said this before, I know, she raised over $1 billion, and she's put millions of dollars into each separate down ticket race in every state. And she's hitting all the swing states. She's going to all the places that they are really like lasered in terms of what they need to do. Whereas Trump, what did he do the other night? He was supposed to go to Detroit or somewhere in Michigan to have a rally. This is a really important state for him because he trashed Detroit in front of the young Republican, or the Republican Economic Club, or whatever that was, saying that Detroit, he didn't, God forbid that any other city should turn out like Detroit, because Detroit is horrible and whatever. And he's doubled down on that. And I think he just recently called our country a garbage pit. Yeah. And he what does he do when he should be on a makeup tour? He spends 3 hours on Joe Rogan's show, pushing that rally 3 hours. He's 3 hours late.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's more important. Look at his decision making. It's more important that I'm on Joe Rogan's show than I'm campaigning in Detroit, trying to apologize for trashing Detroit when Michigan is a huge important swing state to get. So you look at the choices he's making, and they're terrible choices. Laura Trump is just recycling any money back to him. He's not putting it into any races. So the Republican Party is broke. Yes, they get lots of PAC money, but the campaign his campaign is, it's terrible. And it's hard to believe that he's done this, but he is such a tyrant that he won't listen to advice. And every time it seems like he's not doing well, he's going to fire that team. Then he's going to get a worse team that are going to advise him to do whatever they advise him to do. Actually, if he doesn't want to do it, he won't do it. So it doesn't even really matter. So we're watching his own self-destruction. I've always envisioned him, and I got this wrong once. I think maybe on Twitter, I called him Godzilla, but it's actually Joe, the gorilla that on the top of the.
King Kong.
Oh, King Kong, right?
Yeah.
Not Mighty Joe. Okay, King Kong on the top of the
Chrysler Building, right?
Chrysler Building, or whatever he was on top of.
Oh no, the Empire State Building.
Yes, exactly. Why couldn't I remember the top of the Empire State Building, holding like whatever. Laura Loomer or somebody,
Oh my God.
or Laura Trump,
Yeah.
like whoever looks like Fay Wray. And he is self-destructing before everybody's eyes. One of the first predictors of this election would be the getting rid of Roe versus Wade, which was always the ace in the pocket of the Republicans. They could always promise each election they would do this, but they never really wanted to do it because this would turn people out to vote. But now he's done it, so people who don't really like Trump, but that was like their issue, he's already done it. I just see the campaign, and we're being gaslit majorly by the media, who are owned, as you know, because you've done very deep dives into it, by Trumpers, and corporate media. And I'm sure Putin and Saudi Arabia and foreign powers. These polls that we've seen, there's so much poll jacking, and it's come out literally that right-wing poll agencies have been purchased and have flooded the media with these inaccurate polls to look like Trump is winning when he's really not winning.
That's mind control.
Yeah, so it is a mind control, and that's what Putin's very good at, KGB psyops. That is why I'm saying with more and more certainty that Trump will lose. The thing we're all worrying about is like the shenanigans going on in the individual states where the electors want. There's actually Republican electors that don't want to verify these results, but that's all going to. My guides show me that's all going to fade away. Sorry, I keep on saying a lot. I thought I'd gotten out of that, but I'm back into it.
No, I don't even notice. Go ahead.
You're fine. I try to recycle my thoughts.
Yeah, everybody does that. Everybody has those little those words that you intersperse through your conversation. It's a psychological thing. It's just buying time while you organize your thoughts.
It's trying to think of the
meaningless.
words.
Yeah, it's meaningless. It's fine.
And yes, like, who am I to tell you what the future will bring? Making a joke.
Can't think of that word.
Who am I?
Well,
like somebody could read the future, but I just don't see it. If it happens, and we've been majorly interfered with. The people are not on Trump's side. There's that like core, but he's melting down.
Well, that's why he was on Joe Rogan, is he's pandering to that demographic, the young, ill-informed, hyper-masculine bros of that generation.
But are they going to get out to vote, or they're just going to get stoned and stay home? I mean, that's Joe Rogan's demographic.
I don't know. I don't understand them in a very basic level, so I don't know.
I didn't mean to get off on a rant, by the way. Excuse me.
No. For me personally, I won't say I was traumatized. I guess I was in a certain way. This book about the case of Donald Trump talks a lot about the larger public trauma from 2016, the psychological damage that was done for people. They're re-traumatizing from personal earlier childhood trauma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. It sounds like a really terrifying book, but a really good source of information.
It's not terrifying because it's nothing you don't already know, but it's a real clear description of the personalities at play. It does a really good job of explaining why his followers follow him. Really interesting. It's too complicated to go into because there's so many different aspects of human psychology. And
can you tell people what the book is called again?
Yeah, The More Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. And it's edited. It's a collation of short essays and presentations by over 40 psychiatrists and experts in the field.
Yeah.
Like doctors who work at the Pentagon, and their job is to vet applicants for the suitability for the job. And they're all saying he's unfit. Here's why. And they go to great lengths to describe his psychological makeup, the psychological issues at play, how they predicted how that would manifest, and the ways that it has actually reaffirmed their predictions, and now what they think will happen moving forward if he is handed power. And it's edited by Dr. Bandy, B-A-N-D-Y, Lee, and you can find her interviewed on the Midas Touch weekend show with Anthony Davis all last month. He had her every weekend. I've seen her before. I read her book. They originally started with 27 experts put forward the dangerous case of Donald Trump in 2016. And it was fabulous. It hit the bestseller list. It broke the publishers back. They were a month and a half behind trying to keep up with the demand for the book. There's a lot of desire to understand this, but they have augmented it every couple of years since. They got shut down by the American Psychiatric Association, who says, well, you can't diagnose somebody without interviewing them. And they make a very persuasive discussion against that rule. It's just an arbitrary rule. It's not anything binding. And they said that is an archaic rule because people used to be afraid to talk about mental health, but we have a duty to warn the people he's a public health threat, witness 2020 and what unfortunate medical situation. And he's a threat it's an existential threat to humanity. And it's our obligation to talk about this.
Absolutely. So on that note, I'm going to read one more poem. And I was going to interject, that's why everybody has to vote.
Oh, I already voted.
I already voted too. Yes.
Yeah.
We're not going back. We're not going back.
Oh my God.
So this poem is fittingly called Halloween. A gypsy flame in on the hearth, sign of this carnival of mirth. Through the dun fields and from the glade, flash merry folk in masquerade. Pale tapers glimmer in the sky, the dead and dying leaves go by. Dimly across the faded green, strange shadows, stranger shades are seen. It is the mystic Halloween, soft gusts of love and memory beat at the heart reproachfully. The lights that burn for those who die were flickering low, let them flare high in the haunting Halloween. A.F. Murray. It was from Harper's Weekly, October 30th, 1909.
It evokes a really beautiful image, doesn't it?
Yes. I love the poetry of this book. I love poetry too, also. And your Substack was excellent.
Oh, that was fun. It's really pretty self-indulgent. Thanks for
that's what writing isn't. All writing is indulging in one's own psyche and emotional, treasure trove and banks.
It's cathartic though because there's only so much you can tell people till they don't want to hear it, and you need to get it out. It's a good way to get it out. Before we say goodbye, can I just make one mention of something that I think could end on a very happy note?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So they had an annual dinner in New York City a few weeks ago called the Al Smith Dinner in honor of the governor of New York for many years, who was Catholic. So the Catholic Church organizes this thing every year. All the rich big shots come. It's a fundraiser for the charities sponsored by the Catholic Church because, God help them. They're so poor. That's another thing. So it's traditional when there's an election year that the candidates come and what they call gently roast each other. Well, Trump showed up and Harris didn't. And Harris put forward a video apologizing. She was stumping in battleground states. Trump proceeded to make the most egregious comments, including almost overtly implying, some sort of untoward sexual relationship between Harris and Governor Whitmer. It was horrendous, and I wrote a Substack about it if you want to know what he said and what I thought about it. But the glorious moment in the whole thing, to take this all back to what you were talking about a minute ago, her video is hilarious. She should be a comedian. She has perfect comedic timing. So in this video, she starts to apologize, Your Eminence the Cardinal, all you illustrious, rich, disgusting people. She didn't say that, I did. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really sorry I can't be there. And then you hear commotion in the background. And Harris seems genuinely surprised. And she says, what is that? And in comes Molly Shannon in her far too short Catholic schoolgirl uniform as Mary Catherine Gallagher. And they proceed to have a conversation that's utterly hilarious. Superstar from Saturday Night Live, in the little Catholic school uniform. And she starts, oh God, Vice President Harris, I'm so excited to meet you. And this is so wonderful. I just want to remind you, don't say anything bad about Catholics when you're talking to this group. And Harris says, oh, I would never do that. And besides, that would be like criticizing Detroit in Detroit.
Oh, that's excellent. She's so wonderful. I love watching Kamala Harris speak.
It's on YouTube. You can just Google Mary Catherine Gallagher and Kamala Harris.
Okay, and Twitter. I'm sure it's on X. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you for telling us that, so we can end on a happy note.
So funny.
Yeah. So we don't have that many days until Election Day, but there's another Sunday coming up. So there will be a video before Election Day. Everybody, take care. And for those who celebrate, have a wonderful Halloween. And we're gonna do this thing. When we fight, we win, right?
Thank you for having me, Melissa. And I didn't mention this. Your costume is fabulous, darling. You look fabulous. It's so great.
I made you wear your costume. Now you have a little mustache. It was a good costume. Okay, you guys, you take care. I love you.
Thank you, everybody.
Great day, night, evening, whatever time this reaches you, and yes. I will be back. And make sure you check out Irish Granny Tarot. She's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So are you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Okay, bye. Bye-bye.